because you always get those non-horror movie people
Well,
who get scared like
it's the
with
teens.
anything. But it's a rated R movie though.
It is.
Us is rated R. I mean, but you get those teenagers who sneak in. Those kids are like barely 17.
Some people don't. They don't card. Some theaters don't card well, or somebody sneaks somebody in, or something. And so, yeah. But yeah, but even then, even the ones that are like 18 or 19, they're still fucking idiots, and they like scream at everything. Ah! You're like, really? Come on, guys.
I know.
Seriously. It's come on.
It's like, get with it.
Hopefully that doesn't happen at my screening on a Thursday at night at 10 o'clock. I'm hoping that maybe the kids will be in bed.
I'm surprised they moved it a week up. I was actually expecting it to come out much later than this week. Because I know it was screening at South by Southwest last week. So perhaps it got so much positive buzz from there that they were just, hey, let's release it a little bit early. And let's, get it a lot more farther away from all those April releases.
Yeah.
Where we're getting, all the big, pre-summer, almost summer. They're basically summer blockbusters that are going to be, checking in April and May. So they decided to push that up, which is great for horror fans. I think it's a good time of year for it.
I think with Jordan Peele's name, and I think with the, them using Get Out, that people saw Get Out, loved Get Out, I think this is going to do pretty well, I think.
Yeah, his name is much bigger now than it was even when Get Out came out.
Yeah.
And Get Out was a huge success. Won an Oscar.
Oh,
was it Best Original Screenplay?
Yep.
I believe so.
Yep.
That's very, very interesting.
And he was nominated for director.
Yes, he was.
Yeah.
And he's got his hands in all kinds of stuff.
Kinds of stuff.
The Candyman movie that they're doing.
Twilight Zone.
Twilight Zone, which is coming out in a couple of months.
And of course, he was a producer on Black Klansman. So,
yes, he was.
So
he was at the Oscars. He was. We talked about it. He was there.
Yeah.
So getting into what we're going to talk about this week on the Cinema Discovery Project.
And I'm Stephen Billings.
And he is Stephen Billings. I'm Andrew Cabral. And we're back here once again. Stephen is back fresh from his little mini vacation, which we talked a little bit about. We did 2 for the road.
Yeah, I can tell you a little bit about it real quick. I went to Universal, went to Florida, got into some warmer weather. It was great. Me and the girlfriend went down there for a few days. Met Dan Skip Allen for the first time, a friend of ours, mutual friend.
Right. He was on our top films of 2018 episode.
Yes, and it was really cool to meet him in person. He is the same guy. He's no different. He talks movies every 5 seconds. Everything he says is about movies, just like us.
That is true.
Except he wears a Boston hat all the time. Never takes it off. I swear I don't. There was maybe 1 or 2 times I've seen him without that hat on.
It's probably molded to his head.
It's basically molded to his head. Yeah. But it was a good trip. I did the Spider-Man ride.
Nice.
I did Kong Skull Island ride. Got me a Harry Potter wand.
I was gonna say, don't bury the lead. You went to Harry Potter World.
I went to Harry Potter World,
which is something I'm insanely jealous about. He got to go drink butterbeer.
Butterbeer. It's basically cream soda, just a lot worse.
What is interesting is I hear you can buy it like in the store, and bring it home with you, like here, like everywhere. But apparently it tastes not so good. It tastes much different than it does down in the actual park.
I'm sure. Yeah.
Which, I guess makes a lot of sense.
It doesn't make a difference. It's not worth going out of your way. It's fine, but it's not worth going out of your way. But, that was my little mini vacation. It was fun. Can't wait to take the next one because work sucks sometimes. And vacations are great. But, before we get into our main topic, our main thing of the episode, this is gonna kind of become I think a routine thing. If there's some hot topics in the film world that we want to kind of talk about, we might start off the show talking about some news items, and we got a couple today I think we're gonna touch on here. So Andrew, where are we going first?
There were kind of 2 bigger news topics that dropped in the recent days. One is that for those of you who are big comic book superhero movie fans, James Gunn is back as the director of Guardians of the Galaxy 3 because he's, just not going over the whole story, he was, unceremoniously fired from the project due to tweets that he posted on Twitter about 10 or so years ago. Dark, terrible, black humor tweets that were offensive to many people, not in Disney's brand or anything like that.
Well, and probably in nobody's brand, but I mean,
probably nobody's brand.
Yes, they were senseless jokes. James Gunn has even went on,
right.
He's came out and apologized for him, and even after that, somebody decided to bring him up, and then Disney reactionary judgment decided to just fire him.
Yeah, and and for all of the people of recent, news cycles where people have been caught for impropriety when it comes to, the Me Too movement and sexual,
misconduct.
Misconduct, that's what I'm looking for,
Yeah.
with women and all that kind of stuff, and, people's careers being, torn asunder, Kevin Spacey and all these people, Harvey Weinstein. James Gunn's offenses and the way he's approached it, I think, has been kind of respectful. You know what I mean? In the sense, like, he has been like, yeah, I did this. He accepted the punishment when Disney fired him. He said, I'm not going to fight this. I'm not going to do, anything to, counteract this or anything like that. Because there are some people who do, fight tooth and nail for their reputation or for whatever. And he's kind of just accepted his fate, up until now, where his fate has been reversed.
Well, also for him, he was able to get more work, of course, after
oddly enough,
right after that, Warner Brothers takes him on for Suicide Squad, which he apparently is still doing. And
which is crazy to me.
Yeah, and also he's a producer and I think possibly writer on that new film that comes out called Brightburn.
Yes, he is.
Yeah.
He is a producer, and that's put out by Sony, I think.
Yeah.
Which is crazy to me because I don't know if we've talked about it before, but it looks like it is exactly like Superman origin
Man
story.
of Steel, but
with a horror
movie.
twist.
Yeah.
That's
Which
exactly
I'm excited
what it looks
for.
like.
I'm excited for it. Yeah.
and what is interesting to me is, like I was saying, is he's sticking with Suicide Squad, which is at a quote unquote rival company's movie franchise in DC and Warner Brothers, and he's also doing Marvel. And it kind of just goes to show that these filmmakers, they really don't care about this whole Marvel versus DC rivalry.
Yeah, the rivalry is created by the fans.
It's pretty
good,
much by the fans.
It's good, but it's good for business for both of them to do well.
It really is.
Yeah.
It's all about, quality, and an abundance of quality equals money. And that's kind of what these studios and what these filmmakers care about, because they care about success.
Yes.
And things like that. And it really just goes to show that it's kind of all just made up by the fans. And I'm really curious how much time he's going to get to do both Suicide Squad and then to do Guardians of the Galaxy 3, because these movies are not small productions.
No.
These movies are like multi-year productions where you got to spend so many years doing pre-production. Then, what is it, a couple of months to a year of just actual production?
Yeah.
And then post-production. And it's going to be very interesting of how elaborate he makes these movies, because Guardians is an elaborate, heavy CGI movie.
Well, you got to think also, there are examples in this, in this is in a time where CGI was not as prominent, of filmmakers specifically like Steven Spielberg, where he went on to he did Jurassic Park and Schindler's List basically at the same time. So if somebody can do something like that,
movies.
Nowadays it's probably a little easier than, lot easier than it was then. So I think,
and who knows how long these have been, in pre-production. I know Guardians was already in the works.
I think Guardians is probably a little further along, and I think Suicide Squad's probably still in the scripting / casting phase.
What is interesting to me is I keep hearing that Suicide Squad is going to be shooting sometime this year. Yeah. And it's already March, and they haven't casted anyone yet, or at least haven't announced it.
I think you're going to see Suicide Squad get shot first, and then Guardians will be right after.
Yeah, from what I've heard is that the contingency of James Gunn returning to the project of Guardians was that he had the time to do Suicide Squad first, which I don't know if that was something that Warner Brothers had to work out, or something that he wanted to do, or whatever. What is very interesting is that Guardians and Suicide Squad are very similar properties.
Yeah.
One is cosmic and spacey, one is earthbound, but they're both dealing with misfit crews of ne'er-do-wells or anti-heroes. Suicide Squad more so because these are literal villains doing stuff, as opposed to Guardians, who are just
kind of misunderstood.
Like ragamuffins, if you will.
Let me ask you.
Yes.
Now with this decision, where do you think that this change of heart has come from? Do you think this has been in the works for a while, or do you think this was suddenly they Disney was going after people nobody wanted to direct this movie now, and they had to make a decision, and they just decided to rehire him?
Well, if you remember, there was a bit of a cast revolt after.
Oh yeah, well
of
course,
announced.
Dave Bautista,
headlined by Dave Bautista, but they were all kind of quite unified with that letter that they all signed and all that kind of stuff. And then you heard from a couple of different directors straight out saying, not doing it. Taika Waititi said that's James Gunn's property. I would feel like I would feel awkward stepping in to play in that playground, basically, or to play.
It's almost like it's almost like somebody else trying to direct Indiana Jones,
right? Yeah. And it's almost as if, and there were also things like the cast really wanted to use James Gunn's screenplay, and it's like what version of the screenplay was it at? Was it the final screenplay already? Did it still need a couple more drafts? Who was going to do those drafts, if not James Gunn? You know what I mean? There's all kind of variables like that. But I think it all came down to Disney realizing perhaps they jumped the gun, no pun intended, about doing that, being very reactionary. There has been some, fan backlash, and a lot of it could also do with Disney is all really about brand and marketing, and anything that's negative they hate.
Well, there's also a political angle to this possibly too, because the person that outed all this information apparently was, I think, a right-wing person, and James Gunn's very much a left-wing, and they're with somebody like Bob Iger, who is apparently thought about going into politics himself, trying to distance himself away from potential scandalous stuff,
Well, it was very much a political hit job. We may have talked about it originally, or maybe we talked about it.
I think we probably might have talked about it before. Yeah.
But anywho, it was really originally a political hit job. Somebody digging up all these old tweets, which were already out there. It's not like he had to dig on some secret database somewhere.
No, he was just shining the light on something,
They were already there to begin with. Anybody could have found this and then, weaponized it. I know there's a lot of people who hate the fact that James Gunn has been rehired, and there's a lot of people who love the fact that James Gunn has been rehired. So you're not going to please everyone ever about anything when it comes to movies. There's always going to be some infighting somewhere, some fans not liking things, and some harsh reactions and whatnot. So Disney, I guess, is hedging their bets. This is all going to kind of work itself out.
I think it's going to smooth itself out. I think more people wanted him back than didn't want him back. So I think it's going to smooth itself out.
Yeah, and speaking, with kind of on the same track here,
almost on the opposite
almost on the opposite spectrum, where it's about a story of somebody, going away and probably going to stay away for a while, but who knows with Hollywood, they bring dudes back in the fold all the time, just randomly. People who probably shouldn't show back up in places they probably shouldn't.
Yeah.
But anywho, so Kevin Tsujihara, who has been the head of Warner Brothers since 2013, has now resigned as of this afternoon.
Yeah.
And the reason being is that he kind of got caught up in... he didn't get caught up, he did it, straight up, is there was this actress whose name I can't remember. I know her last name was Kirk, but I can't remember what her first name is. Anywho, apparently she had some type of dealing with Brett Ratner and another kind of film mogul type person, and Kevin Tsujihara, where she was going to get, casting roles and all kind of opportunities, essentially for a sexual relationship with Kevin Tsujihara and perhaps someone else. And this was unearthed, I think, last week or so, through someone digging up old text messages where it was really obvious that there was a relationship here that was leading to unfair, workplace opportunities. So Kevin Tsujihara, they gave him the opportunity to resign as I guess opposed to get fired because I guess it looks better on a resume. Who really knows? But he is now gone from Warner Brothers, and which leads kind of a power vacuum for Warner Brothers because they haven't named a successor yet. And I'm really curious who that successor is going to be.
It's going to be me. I didn't tell you. I've been talking to Warner Brothers.
I wish it was me. I would like one-way ticket, please, to Los Angeles.
I'm here.
I'm here, and I will do the job for a quarter of what you will pay.
I will do the job for $1 million a year.
Yeah, I know. Which is like chump change to them.
Nothing.
They probably laugh like Dr. Evil in Austin Powers movies. Or when he goes for the ransom and he just like asks for money that like this is absurd.
$100,000.
Yeah, it's like sure, right away.
Sir, that's not a lot today. Oh,
he goes $1 million.
$100 billion. Yeah. So
anywho, so whoever's gonna replace him, I'm not sure, but to be honest,
Ben Affleck.
This should have happened a lot sooner.
Ben Affleck's gonna.
Who knows? Could be anybody. But I've not been a fan of Kevin Tsujihara for a while because he's meddled a lot when it comes to the DC live-action movies, the recent ones. The Zack Snyder, starting off with Zack Snyder, and then, now we're up to Aquaman, and they got a bunch of stuff in the can, but his, input with those movies has been nothing but negative garbage. Pretty much. For example, I'm pretty sure, and don't quote me on this, I think he wanted the that World War I No Man's Land sequence from Wonder Woman. He didn't want, he wanted that out of the movie.
Yeah.
Or something like that. And he was the one who wanted Justice League to be mandated to be 2 hours or less, which of course hamstrung the heck out of that movie, which already had problems to begin with.
Yeah.
And there's a bunch of other things where he's just he did made a lot of bad decisions that have given those movies bad names and all kind of Warner Brothers stuff. But he's now gone, and there's a vacuum there. Who knows who's taking over? Could be Walter Hamada, who kind of leads the DC movies right now, and he's doing some really good stuff. But that's kind of the more movie mogul news stuff. We don't really get into it too much, but it's kind of big news in the world of movies that we like to get into. But moving on, do you want to transition into our main focus of this episode?
Let's do it, man. Yeah, I mean, something that we've kind of always it comes up throughout our episodes every once in a while. It's kind of one of the things that me and Andrew kind of bond over all the time. It's something we always, anytime we do this thing, we always let each other know what we've gotten, and that's right. Our collections, our movie collections. As we buy things, we like to share with each other what we've gotten, and if you look at the Cinema Discovery Project Instagram, that's all my stuff. That's just me just running it and me just posting things I buy, and but we both take a lot of pride in our collections, and like I said, we've talked about our collections a little bit throughout some episodes, but we want to get a little bit deeper into how we go about choosing what we buy, and maybe some horror stories about certain things we've bought, and just maybe a little bit into boutique label stuff, but we'll go around a little bit of everything. So where do we want to start here?
Well, we touched upon where our collecting habits kind of started in a previous episode, but we'll talk about that a little bit more so now. I started collecting back in about 2006, 2007 with, DVDs. DVDs at the time were, the head of, the best stuff you could possibly get. Standard definition was all the rage.
Yes.
And there was something, new and refreshing about DVDs where it's digital now and it's a disc. It's not videotape. The quality is so much better.
You know what's funny about SD? Is that in the title, it basically tells you that it's not the best quality.
It's standard.
It's like, guys, this is
average.
Just standard. It's not even that great.
It's not even above standard or above average.
Yeah.
It's just average.
They were like, we're going to get better with this. We're just going to say that this is okay.
Yeah, we're just going to do pretend this is the best
Yeah.
for now.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the way movie formatting has gone, is it's constantly evolving.
Yeah, especially over the last 20 years. I mean, it's, like you, I started, my parents had a pretty good sized VHS collection.
Same here.
You know, but when I started really being able to buy my own stuff, it was DVDs. And as I've said in an earlier episode, I remember going into Blockbuster and renting movies. We used to rent movies at a store, people. Then
Crazy
saying,
times.
hey, next thing you know, all this is going to be DVDs. I'm like, DVDs? What are DVDs?
What are you talking about?
What am I going to do with all the VHSs I have? I'm like, what?
Yeah, same for me is like when I started, getting my own money, which I think we talked about before, was when we started buying stuff.
Yeah.
Before then, our parents bought all our VHS.
You'd always have
tapes and all that
to.
kind
You
of
always
stuff.
have to like beg your mom and dad to buy you something, or you saved up money in your piggy bank to go get something.
Something like that, or there was or sometimes they would just like my parents would just randomly surprise me with stuff that I didn't, care about or so. Or like sometimes I remember, being at a store and you'd have to beg them or whatnot. But the first DVDs I can remember in my collection, Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon by Ang Lee.
Interesting.
Spaceballs. What else was and I'm pretty sure the first two DVDs I bought myself were Gladiator and oh my goodness, it may be The Count of Monte Cristo with Jim Caviezel.
I can't believe you remember that like that.
I think I'm trying to see if I still have it. I'm taking a quick
The thing is I can kind of remember the first. I don't know if I can really remember the first DVD I got, but the first Blu-ray I remember getting was for Finding Nemo. I mean, being around the time, probably in my early teens, Finding Nemo was kind of the first movie. It was the Blu-ray that I first got. I can't really remember the DVD, but the Blu-ray was Finding Nemo.
I started with DVDs. I think that's why I remember them so well.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure, I think I've talked about this before, like my first TV on DVD was the first 2 seasons of Smallville. I remember that.
I mean, I definitely got all that stuff.
That's kind of where I actually started collecting, which I started collecting TV shows, because like when I was a kid, they had them, but like the VHS, sets were so massive.
Yeah.
And so expensive, because you had to, for a whole series or season of a TV show, you had to have like what? 10, 12 tapes,
Jesus.
whatever it were.
Yeah, it was terrible.
Maybe it was less than that.
It was bad.
I'm just
it was bad.
Overdoing
though.
it.
No, yeah. I mean, remember just like Titanic. Titanic was, a 3.5 hour movie, and it had like what? 5 tapes or something.
Oh, I think it had 2 tapes.
I feel like I remember it being more.
Godfather had 2 tapes. Godfather Part 2 had 2 tapes. I'm pretty sure like Gandhi and Ben-Hur, basically every epic must have had 2 tapes. You know what I mean? Anything, because I'm pretty sure tapes couldn't hold that much.
No.
Like, I don't even know.
But
they
were
could
still
hold
pretty
2.5
shitty.
hours.
So I mean,
I don't know if they could even hold 2.5 hours.
But I mean, we
remember tracking.
God.
I remember you had to like if you had a good VCR, you could reduce the tracking, but if you had a shitty VCR, it was just all wavy and snowy and scrambly.
Yeah. VHS was an interesting time. I mean, it was, thinking back then, I don't ever remember. It was never a big deal. That was the reality. It was just cool enough that you could watch movies at home, like that you could take home something. And if we were living in that time now with what the minds we have now, we would probably be going crazy, because first of all, home video didn't come out as quick as it does now.
No.
Things took a while before they came out. But they stayed in theaters longer too. Movies stayed in theaters longer. Back in the day.
Now when a movie comes out, it's on home video in 3 months.
3 months, yeah.
3 months is the window.
Unless it's an indie film, sometimes them take longer. And if they ever come out,
a year, 2 years may never come out. I mean, we're just getting Columbus here in in a week or so.
Yeah.
And the movie came out 2 years ago.
Yeah.
So that kind of goes to
and
show
there's some
you
movies,
the time
and we'll
frame
get
and
into
stuff
this
like
later,
that.
that will never get Blu-ray releases. Like
I'm still waiting. I'm still waiting on some things, and I keep waiting. The clock is ticking.
We make jokes about it all the time. They do Blu-rays for Step Brothers or 4Ks for Step Brothers.
Dude,
Van Wilder got a 4K.
There's stuff on Blu-ray that kind of boggles my mind. It's like, who's gonna buy this? But I guess maybe people will. Who knows? Some of the worst movies ever are available on Blu-ray, and some of the best movies ever still aren't available on Blu-ray. So it just goes to show you the chaos.
Where the priorities are.
Where the priorities are. And so, after graduating from DVDs to Blu-rays, which, this was like circa 2009, I don't know if I mentioned this before. One of my first Blu-ray new release buys was Zack Snyder's Watchmen.
Yeah.
I bought that. I ended up rebuying Batman Begins on Blu-ray. I ended up rebuying Braveheart on Blu-ray. And those were like my first couple of Blu-rays that I ended up buying. And this was like 2009 or so.
Yeah.
And then, I've been buying Blu-rays pretty much for the last 10 years. And, people take a look at my collection like, oh, you have so many movies. It's like, I've been collecting now for like 13 years. I mean, when you buy so much, every so often for 13 years, it's going to add up over time. This wasn't like a month of buying. This is years worth of it.
Yeah. So I don't know if this is too personal of a question, but do you have a number? Do you have a rough number, an estimation?
Yeah, it's over 2,000.
Yeah.
I want to say, or it's
mine's
over 2,000.
Mine's right around 2,000. I think it's maybe just over 2,000.
Yeah, I haven't logged them all, but I've logged a lot of them. So it's over 2,000, easy. And it does. And when you look at it, like in my mind, I can't quantify that looks like 2,000 movies. Like to me, it doesn't look like 2,000. But if you count them individually,
it is.
It is. It's there. They're just, there's a lot more than you think because, like, when you're inside of something, you're not quite aware of it.
Sure.
You know what I mean? I think that applies to many, many different things. And I've always found another thing that I've always liked about collecting is I've always found a comforting aspect to it. It's something that I'm good at, something that I know well, and something that I get a lot of joy out of. There's always the thrill of the hunt, as they say.
Yes.
The thrill of the hunt always excites me, although the hunting days are not as exciting as they used to be with, we've talked about the downfall of, brick and mortar stores and the selections and mainstream stores being so shitty these days and all that kind of stuff. But when it was, like, pumping, like, when it was really good, like, 6-7 years ago or so, it was fun. Like, I would go deep dive hunting, late Friday, Saturday nights. Those were my social excursions, basically, were that. And it was a great time. And now it's, now I miss all that stuff. But I don't know if you have some great hunting stories, but I've got a few of just, deep diving into just great movies.
Well, I mean, I do like going whenever I get a chance to go to like what is like a kind of a used bookstore or slash movies and whatever. Whenever I've gotten a chance to go over to our main one, which is called Ed McKay's. When I go in there and find a gem, that's always fun. Specifically, like looking for like some of these boutique label things inside one of these used stores. Sometimes I'll go in there and I'll find a Criterion for a cheaper price than usual. The thing is I'm kind of iffy on used stuff, but if it looks good, if the disc is in good shape, I'm okay. If I can hold it in my hand. Now buying used stuff online, I'm a little more.
That's a little more sketchy.
That's sketchier, but like
I have to have actual pictures of it, especially if I'm buying from eBay or stuff like that. I have to have actual, proof that it's in decent quality.
Yeah.
Buy used stuff in stores, I've never minded because I can actually see if it's in good quality.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well,
I can't see the disc, but
I have
to kind of go on blind faith that the disc isn't a complete travesty.
Yeah, the one of the gems I found in one of my used stores once was I found a Twilight Time release for a good price. It was
I've done that. I've seen that's happened to me.
Yeah, The Big Heat. I found.
Son of a
I found the Big Heat in there once. For a good price, and because Twilight Times, we talked about before, they're kind of pricey, especially once they start to get more limited, and so that was a good find. And I think I found maybe one Criterion in there. I don't remember which one it was, but it's fun to go look through them, at least, if anything. Sometimes you might not find anything you need, because the more you collect something, the more it's harder to find things that you don't already have. Because there's a lot of crap out there. There's a lot of movies that ain't worth buying. So you're just like looking through a bunch of crap.
That is very true. And there are people out there who buy everything. Sure. And I don't want to discourage them. Do whatever you want. When it comes to collecting, whatever makes you happy, go for it. I don't discourage that. There are people who go out every week and buy all the new releases, and there are some people who go out there and buy every version of the new release. Yeah, but they'll buy everything. Yeah. You know what I mean? And stuff that I'm like, okay,
are you starting your money? Do whatever you want. Are you thinking about, like, when you're 75 years old, you want to start your own store? Like, or something?
Yeah, I don't know. But I mean, if you have the money and you want to do it, have at it. Do whatever you want. Personally, for me, that's not been my style. Well, I used to do that.
That's something we can get into. Like what is our routine of, like, how when we go to buy films, like what do we look for when we're buying physical media?
That is, and before we transition to that, I want to say, some stories that I have about collecting where I have found stuff like that, but it was even years ago when before a lot of movies that are now put out on Blu-ray, they were out of print DVDs, and you could not really find them, and it was really a great satisfaction when you found something that was out of print, that was just on DVD, that you could bring home. And then when the Blu-ray started coming around, and they started going out of print, finding out of print Blu-rays were fantastic as well. That's one of the best things, is where you find something that is a gem, is a treasure, and sometimes you almost feel not guilty, but like you're kind of like stealing from this store because they don't know what they have. These fools, they don't know that this is going for like $80 online and they're selling it for $13. They have no idea what's happening, and that's happened to me a few times. This was before Scream Factory released their version of Assault on Precinct 13, the John Carpenter film. There was a Blu-ray, it may have been by Anchor Bay or somebody, and it was out of print or it was expensive, and I found it at a used movie store. There was that James Bond film that's not really a James Bond film because it's not produced by the Broccoli's.
Yeah.
Is it Never Say Never Again? I think it is.
I think it is, yeah.
And it was out of print on Blu-ray, I think the single edition. I think you could still get it. I don't even know if it's in the actual set, because I don't think it is. Remember they had that, Bond at 50 years old set or something like that. There was this whole big Blu-ray set they had a few years ago, which, I hate those big sets because they're just going to keep making more movies. It's not,
the thing
it's not complete.
is I might finally get whatever the next set is, because it'll end with Daniel Craig's last one.
Right.
So I might decide to go ahead and buy, because that's number 25 too.
Yes.
So that's a nice round 25, or not round, but a good number to get a set on, I think.
Yeah. So, moving over from there into kind of, personal strategies. For me, one of my biggest, number one basic collecting strategy is never pay full price for something. Because you can always find it cheaper someplace else, or at some point it will drop in price.
And let me go ahead and make a clear distinction here. Right. Me and Andrew
have a different philosophy.
Don't follow the same rules at all.
We do not follow the same rules. Steven is like a...
I'm reckless.
He's a cowboy.
I'm kind of a rebel without a call. West. I'm a rebel with a cause.
Yeah, his cause is to buy whatever he wants whenever he wants.
Buy the fuck I want whenever I want. And don't give a shit how much... I mean, look, I have lines. But when it comes to, like, as he says, new films, I won't. A lot of times won't wait. I'll just go ahead and buy them right off the rack the first day.
And what I'm saying is, like, when I mean full price, I mean, like, there are stores out there that will charge the full price for a Blu-ray or close to it, and there is no reason why you should be spending that type of money for a Blu-ray. Like there are stores out there that'll charge like $34-$35 for a Blu-ray, and that's just absurd to me. Like because they have manufacturer's price and they have like retail price, which are two different things. Manufacturer price, I believe, are more expensive. Retail price are what the store is selling it for. I could have those mixed up. Don't ask me, I'm not an economics.
Well, I would assume honestly I would assume the manufacturer price would be less because the retailer has to make money.
Right.
So they would charge more.
There's MSRP and then there's the other one which I can't remember right now.
But I would assume the retailer would actually hike the price up as much. They would be the one. They got to make. So. They got to buy the thing from the manufacturer, and then they have to.
They get it much cheaper than we buy it for. You know what I mean? You're right. Yeah, they do have to make a profit.
They'll get it cheaper, and they have to make money, so they have to hike the price up.
Well, what I meant by like full price is that have you ever like on Amazon? They'll have the price, right? And then there'll be a line through it, and it'll have their price.
Sure,
it'll say like
sometimes
30% off.
Sometimes movies will start out at a discounted price. Yeah, and then they'll go to a regular price, which is
what I mean is that there are some stores that go to pretty close to that crossed out price, which I consider the quote unquote full price.
Yeah.
And there's no reason why anybody should do that. And I know people that do that because they don't know any better and they get duped. Sure. Like people who aren't collectors, I've seen people go into stores and be like, "Hey, do you have this movie?" And they'll be like, "Oh yeah, we do," and it'll be like $34.99, and people will pay it. And I'm like, you can go on Amazon and buy that for like $15 cheaper.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it's like,
and that's the thing is
some people aren't aware of that.
They're not aware, and yeah, I mean, they just want the thing and then they get it. And the thing is if people would investigate stuff more, they wouldn't cry so much about how expensive physical media is. I'm telling you, them digital buys are a lot more expensive.
Those digital buys they're not a sale anymore.
It's not a sale, and also you're not really owning anything when you buy it. Like it's fucking in a cloud somewhere. You don't have anything.
Right.
I don't understand.
It may be a couple of dollars cheaper, and I guess we've talked about this before, the convenience of not having to leave
convenience
your house.
and people it's like how I talk about books. I don't have the space for it. So people say, hey, they don't have the space for movies, and that's why they can't buy them either. So it's like, I get that and everything, but I mean, it just depends on some people buy movies just to have movies. They're not collectors like us. That's very true. That people are just casual buyers. They get what movies they really like. But for me, a lot of times I'll just go opening day and get whatever that price is. I do have lines like, for instance, we do buy 4Ks, but I'm selective about 4K buying.
Me too.
And for instance,
selective.
Creed 2 came out. I would have bought that on 4K, but it started out at like $30.99 or something like that. It was like
it was like right now they're like new release 4Ks are hovering around $29.99.
Yeah.
Which, like I said, is not cheap. That's not cheap. Blu-rays are still in the $20 to $25 range. Not cheap. DVDs are still hovering like around $15.
The thing is there was a time where Blu-rays were starting out at $20. There's been an upswing in Blu-ray prices because of 4K.
Not only that, there was a time where you could get, with the editions that were coming out, were Blu-ray, DVD, and digital copy.
Yeah.
So you could get the best of every single world you want. Now, it is typically just Blu-ray and digital copy, or it is Blu-ray, or it is 4K Blu-ray and digital copy.
Yeah.
They've pretty much gotten rid of those whole DVD things.
Yeah.
When it comes to those combo packs, I really like those combo packs because I felt like I was getting more from the money that I was spending.
Sure.
And now it's just like absolutely not a ripoff, but they didn't reduce the price, so you're getting less.
Yeah, they're not. And the thing is in getting into a little bit. I don't want to go too deep into this, but getting into a little bit of the niche of 4K itself. A lot of 4K is not really worth it, honestly, because it's not.
You have to do your research.
You have to do your research because most movies are not mastered in 4K.
No, you had to do your research the same way you had to do your research with Blu-rays.
Yeah.
But the thing is, there was a radical and still is a radical difference between DVD quality and Blu-ray quality.
Oh, yeah.
I don't care what people say. Standard def and high def to me is like night and day. Blu-ray and 4K quality can sometimes be like night and day.
Almost nothing.
Or sometimes doesn't really look like night and day.
Yeah.
And sometimes there are some movies that don't benefit from a 4K up conversion. Or not up conversion, but a 4K edition.
Yeah, because it wasn't mastered in 4K.
Yeah, sometimes they're not mastered in 4K, so they're basically up converts. And up converts are not bad, but they're not true HD.
You're not really paying for much of a difference. And sometimes some of these editions are changing the look of the movie. Like, for instance, I've talked about it before, I think. The Matrix lost a little bit of its green tint with the new 4K edition.
The cinematographer, I think, went back, or somebody went back and adjusted the coloring of the movie.
They George Lucased it a little bit,
Oh, yeah. George Lucas went there and he went a little crazy.
Sure.
He was starting to add, like, scenes and narratives. He wasn't tweaking colors.
Fully crazy new characters.
Yeah, he did do that. He did tweak some colors, too. But he did a little more than that.
Well, yeah, of course. I was going to the extreme with that.
The adjective is still there or whatever.
Yeah.
This the
going back and changing something that already worked.
Yeah, and sometimes a lot of people they've done that, and sometimes they've done it because something wasn't correct, or they're correcting like a problem that needs to be fixed, or sometimes like with the Matrix, they're doing it maybe for
I think they're doing something
aesthetic,
that they feel
you know what I mean?
Feel works in hindsight, but I think that you've already shown the movie in one way for 20 years. Like, why mess with it now? Like, why are you messing with what it looks like? You're just going to turn people off that already like it. I mean,
that is true. And another thing that's kind of become a problem, not only reducing these combo packs, so we're kind of getting cheated a little bit. Extras packages are dwindling mightily for a lot of releases, specifically new releases.
Yeah.
They do that now, like some of them don't even have audio commentaries, and if they do have like behind the scenes featurettes, they're like a couple of minutes long. They're nothing. They're basically a waste of space on the disc for the most part.
Or what they do is they hold back that stuff and then they re-release it later to make you buy it again.
Oh, and there's this other bullshit train that has been happening now for several years, where they'll have retailer exclusive extras.
Yeah. Target does this a lot.
But they used to, but I think it was the J.J. Abrams Star Trek releases were notorious for this, and that was Paramount, I believe, where if you wanted all the extras, and if you were a completist collector like some people are, you had to get the Target exclusive, you had to get the Best Buy exclusive, you have to get the Walmart exclusive to get all of these. And then there are some extras that are disc-based extras, and then there are some that are only available digitally. And I'm like, holy crap, Gross. What are we talking about here? You know who's doing that a lot, and you know it. They don't have to do this, but they got to get all that money they can. Disney.
Yes.
Disney's newer releases, their quote-unquote signature releases, a lot of the old extras that were on the Diamond Edition, the Platinum Edition Blu-rays that came out a few years ago. Disney loves re-releasing their movies every couple of years. They got to get your money one way or the other.
Yes.
Because every new year, there's a new generation of babies being born.
Yes.
The kids who were kids when the movies came out, having kids now, their kids are having kids. The cycle goes on and Disney makes money.
The thing is I'm never going to have to rebuy things for my kids because they're already going to have them all because I already own them.
Yeah. You're one of the lucky ones. But basically what they're doing now is a lot of the old extras from the previous releases, they're having them as like digital only releases.
Yeah.
So you got to go into Disney.com or wherever and put in rewards, and that's how you get them. And I mean, it's nice that they are at least offering them, but give me the disc-based content. You have the space on these discs to do that, and Disney's not hurting for money. You know what I mean?
They don't ever lower their prices.
And they refuse to lower their prices. Where like some of their even their older stuff is difficult to get.
I just bought The Little Mermaid on 4K for like what, $30?
Yeah, same here.
Yeah.
Same here. But not even like an older, I'm talking like,
Oh yeah, of course, like some, yeah.
Little Mermaid is prestige. You know what I mean? Prestige,
but you can go
Lion
and find
King,
Lady
Beauty
and the Tramp.
Yeah.
For
well, I mean,
$24.
Yeah. I love that movie. But some of their older stuff is a little more affordable, depending on when they're on sale.
Sure.
Like for example, Disney's animated Robin Hood, I've seen go as low as $8.99, $10.
Yeah.
Rescuers and Rescuers Down Under 2-pack, I bought for like $8.99, which is a steal for me. So they kind of like brush aside their lesser films and they prop up their more prestigious films, and they keep re-releasing them and people keep buying them. Remember 3D? Remember the 3D craze from a few years ago? We've talked about it many, many times. They started re-releasing a lot of their movies in 3D editions. Lion King, Finding Nemo got 3D release. The Cars movies, I think, came out in 3D anyways.
And the thing is this strategy is directed towards collectors. These editions of the movies, Diamond Edition, Signature. It's what gets collectors to go buy stuff. I mean,
yeah, and don't get me started about how Disney's like, get it before it goes back in the vault.
In the vault.
They used to have that all the time.
And what's funny about that is now is their digital streaming service is going to have everything.
Yeah, so it's like, I guess
the vault is open.
Vault is open
now.
We
can steal it from the vault.
Oh my goodness! I wonder how they're going to combat piracy.
Good luck with
that. Because
what they'll do is they got so much money they can just probably like
they don't care.
They can just like shoot you through your TV, like if you try to steal something. They have like electrical pulse that can come through the TV and shock you if you have a camera on the TV.
Let's transition to boutique label collecting, because that's where things get fun and interesting.
Yeah,
and
let me go ahead and say this. I credit Andrew for kind of getting me into this. When we became friends a couple years ago, I'd already owned some Criterion films, but I was not as invested in the world until Andrew kind of showed me the light.
I can show you the world.
Yeah. Thank you, Aladdin. So he kind of has brought me into the wider world of boutique labels, whether it's Twilight Time, Kino Lorber, Arrow Video. This guy right here has turned me into the monster I am today. So
I kind of discovered it just on my own randomly, where it was like just fortuitous that I would just run into like these releases and I'm like, what is this? Where's this from? What's this company? How do I get them?
Yeah.
Why are they so expensive? All this
stuff. There's tons of them. I mean, there's ones that are lesser known.
Oh yeah, there's like Vinegar Syndrome, Synapse.
Yeah. What's the one we just got our Columbus Blu-ray from? Oscilloscope.
Oscilloscope.
Yeah, Oscilloscope.
There's the Cohen Media Group. There are so many of them, and these aren't releases you're gonna find in stores.
Yeah.
And if you do find them, it's gonna be a cool small boutique store, if you will.
Olive Films.
Olive Films is another one. I discovered all of these. Well, Criterion I had known about.
Criterion is like the top of the mountain.
That's the one you discover first.
Yeah. And
then the rest kind of just you discover after that. It's almost like like a bit of a drug thing.
It is.
Where you discover the one of, and then you kind of go down the rabbit hole of all of them. Not the best metaphor I've ever used in my life, but movie collecting is a lot like, an addiction, if you will.
If you're into film, of course. Yeah. We enjoy, the aspects of these boutique labels that really get our for lack of a better phrase, get our
attention,
our nipples hard, is the artwork. A lot of these boutique labels will come up with their own original artworks that kind of catch our eye. Also, most of these boutique labels will come up with their own original special features or supplements, as they call them.
Typically, Criterion is notorious for that, for having Criterion exclusive features.
Yeah.
Some of these other smaller companies don't have the money to do it.
Yeah.
Some of them don't even have the money to properly restore a lot of these movies to the capabilities that you wish they would be.
Yeah.
Kino is one of those where the early Kino releases looked kind of rough because they weren't fully restored, and they still had like, you know, the like dirt and debris. They still had, you know, some of the lines that go like vertically or horizontally on the screen. They still had all of that type of stuff, but at least we had the movies available to us in HD quality. You know what I mean?
But they've definitely gotten
They've upped their game.
They're up their game, and then I think now they've partnered with Studio Canal, recently.
Yeah.
Like Studio Canal's coming to the States, and so a lot they I think have partnered with a lot of their releases through Kino now. So I mean,
Kino also their library is also much bigger and more diverse than I think it was in the past.
Like especially with silent films, films.
They've got a lot.
Yeah.
They've got they pretty much have
Buster
almost
Keaton.
the entire catalog of Buster Keaton.
Yeah,
and they've released it quite a few times. Chaplin is more spread out. Chaplin's more spread out from Criterion, and I think the Flicker Alley, which is another small one. They have a lot of his early stuff from like the mid-teens, the mid to late teens.
Yeah.
His shorts before he started doing features in the 20s. But yeah, but their stuff is still their stuff's a little more expensive. Flicker Alley stuff, like those Chaplin sets are still like, you know, $50-$60 or whatever.
And you know I'll pay for them.
Yeah, you will. Yeah,
so I'm crazy.
Kino Lorber Classics, which I think is, that's Kino, but it's a little kind of their little imprint, if you will. They have sales very frequently, and their sale prices are pretty decent.
They're kind of like
Time has sales.
They're kind of like comparable to like Arrow Academy. You know, like Arrow Academy's the more classic, the more
if you will,
version. You know, because Arrow does a lot of horror and a lot of with their main main line with Arrow Video, a lot of horror, a lot of cult films.
Oh yeah. And that's the way I think I discovered Arrow before I discovered any of the other ones.
Yeah.
And because the Arrow, you used to, and you still can, only get them through the UK. They're a UK company.
Yeah. And another UK company I've become very,
drop it,
crazy with is Indicator.
Yeah, they're new on the scene, relatively new.
Yeah, and I almost have every box set of theirs. I got another one coming in the mail now.
They have fantastic box sets.
Yeah.
And that's where you can, get a lot of value in movie box sets.
And
specifically
that's
those sets.
And that's one of the main things, at least for me, that really intrigues me with movie collecting is packaging. Is the artwork and the amount of detail and stuff that they put into their sets, especially box sets. I mean, I love Criterion, but their box sets are not on the level of Indicator or Arrow.
We'll talk. Yeah. Well, yeah. I agree with you there because they use thin cardboard typically. Yeah. And thin cardboard bends. It bends. And it doesn't bend back.
except for the Bergman set.
The Bergman set, that's like elite.
That's elite
stuff.
Yeah.
They had to pull out all the stops.
Yeah, but most of Arrow, like almost all of Arrow and Indicator sets are all like that hard cardboard.
Yeah, I have a few, because Arrow has a U.S. branch now. So I have a few of their sets, and they're the same. It's the same quality.
Yeah,
it's the same. It's the same exact set that you get in the UK, and it's good hard cardboard, and they give you lots of extras. That's the one thing about boutique labels like Arrow, Criterion. They give you extras that you wouldn't get if a mainstream studio was putting them out. And that's just, I don't know if that's a cost thing, if that's a caring thing, or whatever. Because I kind of appreciate, like, I would rather pay more or get more for my money than not.
Yeah, like collectors will pay for quality.
Yes,
like it's like anything. It's like any kind of higher business, like whether it's like clothes or furniture, or like people that have the money. If you put if it's quality, they're gonna buy it. People are looking for reasons to spend their money. I'm looking for reasons to spend my money on movies. Like, you just keep giving me reasons. I already bought Columbus, but no, they put out another edition of it.
I'm buying it
with different packaging. You're giving me a reason to go after it.
And different extras
extras.
Yeah, actually, the one that's currently available from the UK doesn't have any extras.
Yeah.
so we're getting something.
Yeah. So you can just change the packaging and add some new special features in it, and I will buy it again.
Let me drift down that lane a little bit.
Oh, Jesus.
One of my biggest pet peeves is re-releasing a movie that is the exact same release that you've already done.
Fox does this a lot.
Fox does it a lot. A lot of companies do this a lot, where they just put it in a new case with like a new awful photoshopped cover, and say like, oh, it's now the 30th anniversary release as opposed to the 25th.
Die Hard. 35th anniversary.
At least Die Hard now they put it out in 4K, so the quality's better than the Blu-rays and the DVDs.
Kind of.
I mean, shit. Come on.
It's just grainier.
I guess. I mean,
it's not really a movie that's going to get much better quality.
But they do this a lot, and it's frustrating because they don't tell you. They don't tell you this is kind of stuff you got to do your research on. I do a lot of my research on Blu-ray.com, the Digital Bits, DVD Beaver, all these kind of Blu-ray review sites that'll straight up tell you this is the same exact transfer from the movie from the release that came out 5 years ago.
Yeah.
There's no reason to buy this unless you don't already own it. And sometimes they get a little cute though with these anniversary releases. They'll add like 1 or 2 small extras to get you to buy it, so you don't feel as if you're being cheated, so they get your money anyways.
Yeah.
And that's a little shy. It's a little, it's a little cruel to me. Not cruel, but it's like it's dastardly. Dastardly is a word. It's a little dishonest, to be straight up with you. There's a lot of movies that get multiple releases over and over again. Steven mentioned Fox. Star Wars is probably the most re-released movie franchise, I think, on in movie release history.
I don't know, Harry Potter might have
Harry Potter's getting up there, but thing is, Star Wars goes back to the VHS days, and Harry Potter came along when DVDs were kind of mainstream.
Sure.
That early 2000s area. And I've owned Star Wars on VHS, I've owned Star Wars on DVD twice, I've owned Star Wars on Blu-ray. When the 4Ks come out eventually, I'm going to get those too.
Of course.
And there have been multiple DVD releases, multiple packages, multiple editions with different extras here and there. It's a big mess. And Star Wars isn't the only one that does that. They've done it for other franchises as well. And it's frustrating as a collector because, unless you're, you only have so much money to spend, most of us do. So you kind of want to... you want to spend your money wisely. That's always been another one of my basic tenets of what I do is, the first one being never pay full price. Get something for as affordable, or at least have a number of a number you're willing to work with. There are certain movies that I think are only worth a certain value. I know Steven is like, if he wants it, he'll buy it. He doesn't give a shit.
Okay, that's too. It is, but sometimes.
I mean, I don't know. Like, there are some movies I'll watch and I'll be like, okay, I'll buy that when it's like $10, or I'll buy it when it's like $15. But I wouldn't go out and buy it right now for like 25 or 20 or 30 or whatever. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, there's certain movies I place a certain value on when I'm collecting, and that kind of goes up and down.
I think for me, and this is part of you obviously have more of a patience than I do. Right. For me, I find myself scared that I'm going to get behind in my collecting if I don't buy it now. You know what I mean? Like, because if you don't buy it now, then that means, because there's movies that are always coming out and new releases always coming out, I feel like I'm going to get behind in my collecting if I don't buy it right now. Yeah,
there's definitely a fear of missing out, especially now that social media is also a big thing when it comes to collecting, showing off your collection for, not only pride, but, camaraderie with other fellow collectors and whatnot.
And then also, with all this talk of getting rid of physical media, it's like, do I really want to take the chance of not ever buying this movie when I had the chance? You know,
and then there are moments, and this has happened to me. These are kind of, I guess, drifting from more of the horror stories realm where there's something I wanted, and I wait, and I wait,
dude,
and
it's happened to me recently.
And it either becomes unavailable, goes out of print, or the price just stays at an absurd amount forever. And that's happened to me with a lot of, coincidentally, these boutique label releases that we've been talking about.
I was going to say that I have an example right now.
I got an example right in my head, and I hate myself right now more than anything. It's because I know, you know what's crazy? Because I know Steven has this set.
Oh, really? What is it?
It's the Seijun Suzuki Volume 1 set.
Is it out now?
From Arrow, I think.
Yeah.
And it's out of print. And
wow.
And I hate myself now because I wanted it and I didn't buy it when it dropped, and I didn't buy it when it went back up, and I didn't buy it at all. So now it's like super hard to get. So yeah, that kind of burns me a bit.
Well, mine isn't final yet, but we've talked about this recently. The Sinbad trilogy from Indicator. I'm trying to get all these sets from Indicator, and now with the one I got coming now, I only have one more set to get, and that's the Hammer Horror set, Volume 3. But the only one left after that is the Sinbad trilogy, where Ray Harryhausen worked on the special effects for these movies.
Yes, he did.
And now it's looks like it's basically out of print, and so now the only ways to get it is like paying some extraordinary couple $100 to get it, or but I see the thing is I put an order in for it before that, and now it's still telling me that there's a possibility that I could get it. It still hasn't told me that it's out of print yet through my order. They're still giving me hope, but I'm pretty sure I missed out.
It may in fact be false hope.
It's probably false hope, but I'm not going to cancel. I'm going to let the order tell me that there is no more.
Yeah, I would just if it never gets fulfilled, it never gets fulfilled.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't cancel.
As long as they don't charge me.
Yeah. There are, we mentioned things like that, and there are certain, not holy grails, if you will, but there are releases that I think a lot of collectors missed out on that they wish they would have bought at the time, or that they're still trying to get now.
Yeah.
For me, man, it goes back to kind of Criterion, because even Criterion movies go out of print, and they're happening now as well.
Yeah, I mean, even Blu-rays, there's Blu-rays out of print.
Yeah, Blu-rays are going out of print from Criterion because, these boutique labels, one of the negative drawbacks from them is they don't own the movies outright. They just own the licensing for a limited amount of time.
Yeah.
So once that license or whatever agreement they have,
or
with
if they don't renew it,
parent companies, if they run out or they don't renew it, these releases become out of print and the prices skyrocket. Yeah, or fortunately, sometimes another company will pick it up and just re-release the exact same edition. Or at least the exact same quality.
But then our collectors' minds go freak out because we're like,
goes bananas.
That was on that collection. It was in the Criterion collection. Now I have to go buy it from Studio Canal, and it's like,
you know what I've been fighting with for a little while now is the movie Birdman of Alcatraz, or Birdman from Alcatraz.
Yeah, I got it on Twilight Time. Yeah. Yeah,
and I'm struggling with which release to get, because there's now 2 releases, and they both have, Birdman. The movie's Birdman of Alcatraz, that was directed by John Frankenheimer, starring Burt Lancaster. And there was a Twilight Time release, like Steven just mentioned, but now Twilight Time lost the rights, and it was picked up by, I believe, Olive. And Olive put out their own release, and I'm thinking to myself, hey, it's going to be the same transfer. And I believe it is, but there's a different extra on each release. And I'm like, what do I do? Do I buy both?
To me,
do I not?
From there, it comes down to packaging. It's like,
what's they're both standard Blu-ray cases with different artwork on the cover.
Okay, well, so what artwork you like more, or
which artwork? which one is more appealing to you aesthetically.
Yeah, yeah.
And if that doesn't work, then
or which special feature it sounds like it's more interesting.
Yeah,
and sometimes you can go to like a DVD Beaver, like what you were talking about, and they can
compare.
You can compare that way. He can do the research for you and tell you which special feature is more worth it.
Yeah, that is very true as well. So there's things like that happen, and in some of those boutique labels, their stock is limited.
Yeah.
I know Twilight Time straight up says typically it's 3,000.
3,000, yeah.
3,000. I know some of the other ones don't tell you, but if they sell out, they pretty much go. I know Warner Archive typically their stuff doesn't sell out, but when it does, you have to kind of wait for them to like make more, essentially.
Yeah.
Because the nice thing with Warner Archive, even though it is a boutique label, they don't pay for licensing. It's directly from Warner Brothers.
It's theirs. Yeah, I mean it's backed by a big company, a big corporation.
It's Warner Brothers' back catalog of movies, and they're Warner Brothers.
Yeah.
They're a different section of Warner Brothers, but at least they don't have to worry about their stuff going out of print.
Yeah.
Typically. Unless they just decide not to manufacture anymore because maybe they're not selling well, or maybe they've sold as much as they want to, as much money as they had allocated for production, or whatever those things are.
Yeah.
But Warner Archive is another one that has stepped up their game tremendously in the last 4 to 5 years or so. Because initially their Blu-ray releases were okay. They didn't have a huge selection or a very interesting selection, but then they just amped up and just started putting out some big heavy hitters in their back catalog with big-time names and big-time movies that were only on DVD for the longest time. Things like, The Big Sleep, or so many movies.
Maltese Falcon.
Maltese Falcon was already
already
had a regular release. That's the one thing about Warner Brothers, is sometimes they released their big names and with their main label. Now they've kind of just relegated all of that stuff onto their Warner Archive release. But they put out stuff. A lot of the Bogey and Bacall movies have all been released. Some Alfred Hitchcock movies have been released, like Suspicion, as well as The Wrong Man. They've released, movies like Battleground, or even more like niche type of things, like the Supergirl movie from the 80s, which is not a great movie, but it's more of a cult classic for some.
Yeah.
Or like Lady Hawk with Rutger Hauer or something like that.
I mean, look, sometimes we can't explain why we want to buy certain movies. Sometimes we don't have a reason. We just want it.
That is very true. Sometimes, and there, everybody's tastes are different. Some people love, B movies from the 1980s, or B movies from the 60s, or monster movies from the 50s, or whatever.
Sometimes I buy movies just to have it in my library. I don't. Sometimes a lot of times I'll blind buy things I haven't even seen, and I just want it in my library, and I want to have that sometimes as a research tool of sorts, right, or just an education, or sometimes I'm guilty of just buying stuff to put it in my collection. It's just how it is. It's not always it's most of the time not the case, but sometimes.
I treat it not only as, I would say not an archive, but as a personal library.
It's a personal library, yeah.
A lot of people, collect lots and lots of books. I'm a book collector as well, so I know that feeling. And, a dream of mine has always been to have my own personal library, and now I kind of have it with movies as well as with books. And it's something that I feel like if there's a certain movie that I need for my collection versus something that I want, there's a difference there. Or sometimes they're both one and the same. I want something and I need it for my collection. You know what I mean? It kind of goes, both ways in that regard. And it's kind of just, our personal taste and stuff. But, I love classic, old classic movies, black and white, stuff from the 40s, the 50s, all that kind of stuff, certain prestige directors like Alfred Hitchcock and all those guys. And I want to get all of their movies. And so I purposely go and seek out all of their movies and to find them.
Yeah. And so getting into a different section here, the way we set up our collections on shelves, and also catalog our movies. Let's talk about how we do that.
Yeah, I definitely want to talk about that.
Yeah, with me, I'm not so anal about how my movies are on my shelf. Like I think you are. That's a difference with me and you. Sometimes I put directors together. But like even my Criterion collection, and this is a big thing for Criterion collection people. A lot of times people will put it in the number order. My shit's just up on the shelf. I don't care.
I know what you're saying.
Yeah, I just put them up there just to see. That's my thing is I get pleasure in looking at them, and I don't care what order they're in. But other than that, it's usually sorted by labels. Like I have a whole shelf here that's just dedicated to Criterion movies, and then over here on my other wall, I have all stuff that's my other boutique labels or kind of special edition things that I've bought. And then in my other room, it's like all my other stuff, just all kind of just on the wall. So yeah, that's how I go about it. I don't get too anal with how my stuff is sorted. So
yeah, mine's a little more, I guess you could say,
like a library,
organized. Yeah, initially, the way it's set up as one section of the collection is, I call it the director's wall, if you will. But coincidentally, it doesn't start out straight up with directors. It starts out with Best Picture winners. Best Picture winners for the Oscar. Beginning to end, chronological order. I have a lot of those. I don't have every single one, but I've got a couple. I've got quite a few. So I have all of those, and then for some reason, right after that, this is just the way it's always been, is I have all of the James Bond movies, like all the individual Blu-ray releases next to each other, chronological order. I think I've said the only one I'm missing is Die Another Day, because I just didn't feel like rebuying it on Blu-ray at the time.
Yeah, I mean,
and I'll probably buy it eventually.
With you, I keep franchises together too. I mean, that's
right.
Just stuff like that is easy to organize, but for the most part, there's no.
Thing is, I don't even do that. Sometimes I do, but I'll get into that. But then after that is where I start my order by director in alphabetical order by last name, starting with A, going down to Z, starting with J.J. Abrams, and I think going down to Fred Zinnemann. Yeah, or Edward Zwick. I think it's Edward Zwick.
Yeah.
Yes, Edward Zwick would be all the way at the end, And I always get comments on my videos because I record my movie reviews and all this stuff I do on YouTube in front of that wall. And people always comment on it like, you got to organize. It looks like a mess back there. And I'm like, the way I shoot it is I only shoot a medium shot from like my chest up and going a little bit above my head and and on the left and right, so you only get a small snippet of what the collection looks like.
Yeah.
And typically behind me it's the H's, so I have like Hitchcock and then Ron Howard, and then it goes into the J's with Peter Jackson. And people always say, I got one comment saying, I see you have like Criterions back there, but they're not in any order. You're like disrespecting Criterion and da 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 da. And I was like, first of all, let me explain this to you the way it is.
I'm disrespecting Criterion by buying their movies.
Yeah. Because I'm not ordering them in like I guess the proper way, like you said, is by number.
But yeah, most people
whenever.
say that the way to do Criterions is to put them up in number order.
But the thing is with me is if I have all of the directors in order and one of their movies is released by Criterion and I have that Criterion, I'm just going to put it right there, like with Alfred Hitchcock, David Cronenberg, all the Bergmans are together, all that stuff. And Fellini and Godard and everybody, all of those movies are together. And I've also gotten a lot of things with that is that I mixed in the Blu-rays with the DVDs because, yet again, I'm not organizing them by format. I'm organizing them by director. So if I only have the DVD of this particular movie by this particular director, I'm going to put it there. Or if they haven't released a Blu-ray of that movie by this particular director, I only have the DVD available. So there you go.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't like to do that. A lot of people like to separate their Blu-rays from
Which
the
is
DVDs.
What I do. Which is what
you do.
Yeah.
So after that wall, I have a separate section where I have things in alphabetical order by genre, I have.
See, I don't see, and
it's
what's
not
weird,
even. It's not even an alphabetical order, to be honest.
And what's weird about that is I don't know how do you do this for your whole collection? How can you can't do it for your whole collection?
That's the only way I can kind of keep things like in some type of order to where I can know where they are.
Is this just portions of your collection that are organized in different ways? Because you can't organize that all different like.
Well, the others, the section I'm going to talk about now, doesn't have like particular. They're just kind of they're not made by directors whom I have like clumped up together. Do you know what I mean?
Gotcha.
Like they're like, for example, the action, sci-fi, and fantasy. I put all those movies together. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Then I'll put all the comedies together. Then the dramas, and then like then after that I actually have the small animated section that I have, and then after the animated, I have comedies, then animated, then drama, then I have horrors at the end.
Yeah. Now
those are in alphabetical order by title.
Yeah. Okay,
that makes sense.
Yeah. You have a very intricate, very specific, intricate sorting style.
And the great part about it is, I was gonna be very, very egotistical and say I'm the only one who can find.
You're the only one who's gonna be able to find shit. Yeah.
So no one could be able to like tell me where, so no one can, take something and me not knowing it. You know what I mean? Although, as intricate as this all is, I have misremembered where certain things are.
Yeah, because we'll be talking about like, where is that movie? And
like, for example, like Kiss Kiss Bang Bang by Shane Black, I couldn't find for like a year. Like I thought I lost it, and it was in my comedy section. I don't know why it was there, but it
should have been in your noir section.
Yeah, I don't even have a film noir section.
Oh, that's surprising.
No, because that's like a sub. I don't even know a subgenre. I don't even know.
We had a whole episode about that. Go back and watch it.
We had a whole episode of like how to classify the unclassifiable film noir, essentially.
But
the thing is, it's very intricate and very weird, but it makes sense in my head.
Yeah, I mean, that's the only thing that matters. It needs to make sense in your head. But, so going with that, how do you? I think you already kind of talked about this or brought this up quickly. You don't really have a cataloging yet of your movies necessarily.
I've been cataloging my stuff for years on Blu-ray.com.
Okay.
It's a free sign up, and you can just catalog all your stuff there. There is an app, but the app isn't the best.
I was gonna say you kind of suggested the app once, and I used it for a little bit, but I wasn't liking how the functionality of it.
There's too many. There's a lot of steps.
There's a lot of steps to add your movies.
Like I wish they were just like, okay, here's the barcode scanner. I scan this one, add. Scan this one, add.
And that's why I use My Movie Pro, which is an app you can get on your phone, and it has a way you can either scan one at a time, or you can even do multi-scan and scan as many as you want, and then it'll go into then you'll go to the next screen and it'll say, do you want to add all these movies? You hit the add, and then you just got to wait for them to load.
That's actually a lot easier than what I was just describing.
Yeah.
That makes a lot more sense.
Yeah. So you can just keep scanning until you're done. And then,
I usually do it manually on their website, which is kind of a pain in the ass, to be honest. Because that's why I usually do it every time I watch a movie is when I scan it in.
But the thing that happens sometimes when you do this is sometimes the site might not necessarily have updated information, or the site doesn't separate movies in box sets like you would like them to. Like sometimes I have that problem with certain sets.
And like what? Anything specific on that?
I'd have to look through my. I can't think of anything specific on it. But there's certain sets I've put into my collection, and it's only given one.
Oh, I know what you're talking about.
It's only given me one movie credit, which is the set itself.
Oh,
and not giving me giving me quantity for the movies in the set.
I did not even think of that, because let's say you catalog the Bergman set,
and it just says one.
Is that just one in the collection, or is that And
I think that is an example of one that actually did not add in all 30 movies or whatever it was, 35 movies. Because it doesn't have the updated info yet. So that happens sometimes, and you can maybe go in and like search for each titled movie and get it in there that way, but then it doesn't match up with like the set that so it's sometimes things can be a little bit annoying when you're cataloging like that, but it's that's just kind of like a little something you can. I get over it. It's not a big deal as long as the quantity's there and I'm tracking my movies and I have the titles in there. I'm fine. But I'd say My Movie Pro is the best thing I've used so far. But I guess other than that, I mean, I think we said something about how there were certain titles that just are not going to make it to Blu-ray.
Oh yeah, there are certain titles that haven't made it there yet.
Some frustrating things about collecting. We already talked about some horror stories a little bit, but we can go into that a little bit more too.
I want to talk about packaging for a little bit.
Packaging horror stories.
Yeah, you know what I mean? This is something that's specific to me, not necessarily specific to many, is I am a slipcover aficionado. Again,
I've once again, Andrew's put me into that position again.
The thing is, I didn't even force Steven.
You didn't force me. You made me see the light again that I need to make that something that's important because it is.
I'm always like, well, the thing is, I'm about quality. You know what I mean? If I'm gonna pay $25, I don't want like a thing with a torn slipcover that's half hanging off. You know what I mean? Yeah. Or it's got like those edges that are all worn out.
It's part of the collect. It's part of the item itself. It's a.
Yeah, there's a completion factor about it, and for me, ever since I've been collecting even DVDs, I got to make sure that when I buy it, that the slipcover is in, as pristine condition as possible. Yeah. And that pretty much goes with only new releases. Sure. Because that's when typically the slipcovers
Which is another reason
available.
I go after movies right away. A lot of times when you don't get movies quick enough, the studios stop producing slipcovers, and then you just get the Blu-ray cases.
Typically, after they're considered only available on first print editions, meaning that the ones you get on the day they come out, those would be first run, and then once those sell out, or after a while, they'll put out another batch, and then that batch will not have slipcovers. They'll just be wrapped in plastic. Sometimes slipcovers can be really nice. Sometimes slipcovers cannot be so nice when it comes to the artwork.
We talked about Boy Erased recently. That one is rough.
Yeah, there's some, and then like typically they've kind of gotten a little lazy when it comes to slipcover art, where it's literally just the same artwork that's on the
poster,
Blu-ray case itself, the Blu-ray case itself.
Sure,
or it's just the movie poster or some awful Photoshop.
And sometimes they get a little bit crazy with these special edition things where they put out re-releases and they're like this pop art stuff, or there's this like
we didn't talk about like the steel books.
Yeah, we haven't even really gotten into packaging completely yet.
Yeah, steel. Well, let's stay on slipcovers for and then move to steel books. But slipcovers, they're just kind of cardboard covers basically, and sometimes
they're protective blankets.
I guess you could say they're protective blankets. But I kind of like them because I'm kind of obsessive compulsive about things like that, where if it's a movie franchise and they all come with slipcovers, they all look nice on the shelf. If they all have slipcovers,
it's an aesthetically pleasing thing.
They're all lined up. They're all even, all level.
Which is it's just kind of why I for a minute got away from them, because I knew that all my movies didn't have slipcovers, so I got rid of the ones I did have slipcovers for, so that on my shelf they were all the same level.
You want to hear something crazy? There are sellers on eBay who only sell slipcovers.
Yeah,
and people will pay good amount of money just for the cardboard slipcover, not for the movie themselves. Just for the slipcover. And I've done that before.
But yet
crazy. Yet again, that's one
you
of
say I'm crazy.
Yeah, I know.
You pay probably $10 for some cardboard?
I wouldn't do that. Like my maximum would be like $5. Like I don't want it that bad. Even if it's like a super rare, low printing, out of print slipcover, it's like I'm not paying $10,
he's not going to tell us he paid some money for one.
I have not.
All right.
I've rebought it. I'll tell you this. I've rebought movies because they didn't have slipcovers when I first bought them.
Yeah.
I've rebought a movie where I damaged the slipcover because biggest pet peeve, here we
go.
Oh,
Jesus.
Here it comes. Retailers, listen to me. Do not put your price tag on the slipcover.
Best Buy and Walmart.
It destroys
Stop
them.
it.
Destroys them. Best Buy won't stop doing it. Walmart's done it in the past. The only company that is actually wise enough not to do it is
Target.
Target, because they typically put it in that plastic case.
Yeah.
Which is both a blessing and a curse.
Yeah.
It's a blessing because this thing has been manhandled ridiculously by people, and perhaps it is in pristine condition, but you can't quite see all the angles of it to make sure that it's not dented or torn, or the way somebody placed it in there. They closed the lid or closed it. They didn't squish something, or smash something.
Oh,
but Target also loves to use the spider wrapping.
I was gonna say the spiders. That also
Terrible.
Barnes and Noble likes to use the spiders a lot lately.
They do.
Yeah.
And the spider wrapping they typically use for their TV show sets, but they're Blu-ray sets at Target. And I've seen horror shows where people go to buy Game of Thrones, and it's every single one of their sets is just crushed with tight
Can you imagine
clampy wrapping.
Wanting to buy the Bergman set and then going to the Barnes and Noble and it's in spider wrap, and you're like,
there's no, I don't know if the spider wrap is big enough to get around it.
Maybe not, but still.
Maybe it is, I don't know. But
anybody that tries should be executed.
Yeah, come on. First of all, how are they going to walk out of the store with that set? Where are they going to hide it?
How many people are going to try to steal Bergman sets?
But how do you hide? They're going to put it underneath their coat? The thing is massive. You know what I mean?
I mean, people do crazier things, but I'm just saying.
People do crazier things. But what was I saying? Oh, yeah. I've damaged slipcovers because when you try to peel it off ever so slightly, you end up not doing it. It doesn't come off.
Well, I mean, even just not getting the sticker off, but you can sometimes just scratch the hell out of a.
Oh, I've done that.
A cardboard and then leave these impressions on it that ain't even make it worse.
Yeah, and I've done, but then after, even sometimes after I've gotten it's one of the peel off ones where you're like, oh, thank you, this one's not as sticky on, but it leaves a residue. Oh, the residue.
Yeah.
Oh, the residue. It haunts my nightmares. And then they say, there's all kind of remedies for it. And some, I guess, work and some don't. The one I don't think that works, that a lot of people use, is this substance called Goo Gone, where it's this stuff called Goo Gone, where, it takes your goo, makes it gone. And then you're supposed to, you're supposed to maybe not spray it on there, but you're supposed to do a certain thing with it. Usually, I've used it with a Q-tip and all kind of stuff. Yeah. It doesn't work. Or what it does is it leaves a smudge on there. At least for me, it's this big smudge, and it gets rid of the stickiness, but it leaves a smudge stain behind.
What I try to do is I try to use the sticker itself if I can to help get some of it off.
Oh, I've tried using tape. Oh, you know what's happened to me?
Oh, I've done
it too much where I tear the thing right off.
Yeah.
So it has little white flecks. There's a little white flecks because I tore the artwork right off of it.
Yeah.
And it's
I just used the sticker that I just tore off the front. I wouldn't use tape. That's
yeah, but even then, have you ever gotten a sticker almost all the way off, and then it
at
tears?
The last corner, it
leaves that stuff behind, and you're trying to scrape it off and just making it worse.
Yeah.
Oh, it's horrific.
But I've told you about it now, and there's a little shame in this, but I've been through a situation where I needed to get a slip cover, and I decided just to steal the slip cover from a store. Just to Walmart, don't get me. Come at me, Walmart. I took your slip cover.
I don't think they may not care.
They have millions of dollars of debt every year, so it's okay. It's from people stealing shit, so they'll be all right. They make a lot of money, but
transitioning into more specialty
types of packaging.
Yeah, there is steelbook. There's steelbook. But then there's metal pack, and then there's tin pack, and there's a difference. Steelbook is the one you typically want.
It's the slicker ones.
It's the slicker, the sleeker. The material I think is a lot sturdier and a lot better. Then you have metal packs, which is a thinner.
There's a coating,
metal.
More of a coating, like a.
Yeah, there's more of a coating on steelbooks. Metal packs have hinges on them.
Yeah,
that's the one thing I've noticed, where steelbooks typically don't.
Yeah,
that's the one way you can tell the difference between a metal pack and a steelbook is the metal pack has hinges. Then there's like a tin set. When tin, you can tell tin sucks.
Yeah,
tin's really thin. And I used to buy a lot of steelbooks. I don't so much anymore unless the packaging really catches my eye, like the artwork really catches my eye, because a lot of steelbooks that are coming out now are either re-releases of movies that have already been released, and they just yet again it's re-releasing the same movie I already own in a new package, or sometimes there'll be retailer exclusive new release steelbooks, like for example, Creed 2 just came out. Best Buy had an exclusive steelbook.
Yeah.
And Best Buy typically has exclusive steelbooks. That's their game.
Target does digibooks.
Target does digibooks. And digibooks are a little bit different. They're typically thinner packagings, and the disc itself or discs are they're typically in like one of those plastic hubs.
Yeah.
If you will, inside of like this book type packaging.
And there's different styles of digibooks too.
There are different styles. There's thinner ones. There's thicker ones.
There's folded ones that fold.
Yes.
Yeah. That specifically like the DC Universe movies all usually come in these thicker digibooks. I don't think Man of Steel has one. It might, but
it does.
Does it? Okay.
What's crazy is I have Man of Steel and I have Wonder Woman.
Yeah, I got the other ones. Yeah. I've been collecting all of them. Besides Man of Steel is the only one I don't have.
You know what? Oh, Steven, we're gonna get to this. This will be probably one of the last things we talk about: rebuying different editions. We'll talk about that soon, because that feeds into literally what we're talking about right now.
Yeah.
But yeah, the digibooks from Target are nice. Sometimes digibooks, the way the disc is held is it'll be like in a sleeve at the back of the book.
Yeah,
that happens, and usually the book aspect of these digibooks is sometimes an excerpt from a much larger book that you can purchase separately.
Yeah.
I know that's typically for what Steven was just saying for the DC movie, the DC live action DCEU stuff, is they're typically just excerpts from the larger art books that they have, or the art and concept books that they come out with. A lot of movies come out with these, really gorgeous, art and concept books that, show you all like the pre-production concept art and, the designs of the world and all that kind of stuff. They did it for, the Hobbit movies did it. They did it for Blade Runner 2049. They did it for the DC movies, all that kind of stuff. Sometimes they're excerpts from that, or sometimes they're comic books, or they're like maybe pretty cool comic books they put in there. I think they did that for Dark Knight Rises. But yeah, so digibooks are really nice. Some people collect both. Some people collect one. Some people collect the other. It really all depends on, what you want.
I'm both. I do both. I mean, I'm more prone to digibooks, but I like a good steelbook depending on what it is.
Same here. Next thing I want to talk about before we get into double dipping is multi-movie packs, because I think there's both pros and cons to them, and it really all depends on your particular taste.
Yeah,
I know Steven likes to collect, these multiple movie packs, specifically franchise movie packs.
Franchise movie, and if it's just random movies in a pack, it's not my thing. But I like to, if it's like, for instance, like the Dark Knight trilogy, or like recently the Maze Runner. I got all the Maze Runners in one set. Like I like to get them sets because they save space.
Yeah, the shelf space becomes a premium when you're collecting, and any way you can save, I would advise you to.
Yeah,
because it's going to run out really quickly. The backdrop to some of these sets is that they're not very elaborate when it comes to packaging. At least not a lot of the Blu-ray sets now. Some are, these big deluxe sets that are really, really nice. Like when the Dark Knight set first came out, it was this big white box set from Warner Brothers.
I got it.
Really nice. I know he does. Jealous. Because sometimes those sets do have exclusive extras that the individual releases that came out beforehand don't have. And you can only get them through there. And sometimes they'll re-release those bigger sets into smaller, more affordable sets with, less, extraneous packaging. But yet again, the backdrop for me is sometimes those sets don't have all of the extras that the original releases have, because sometimes original releases will have an extras disc that is not included in these sets. And that happens with a lot of the Steelbook editions as well when it comes to movies. For example, if you buy the Steelbook edition of a movie, Saving Private Ryan, you don't get like the extras disc that came with the regular Blu-ray release. They just give you the movie. I think the same thing is with Gladiator as well. So you kind of want to be conscious of those things if you are, double dipping or buying movies for the first time, and you want the complete package. If you're interested in extras, most people aren't. But a lot, and when it comes to the bigger sets, sometimes not the bigger sets, but these multiple movie sets, the packaging isn't as extraneous, where it's literally just, if it's 3 movies, like the Maze Runner set, it's just 3 discs in a oversized Blu-ray case. There's nothing really extravagant about that.
Some of them, like I got like the RoboCop movies, and a little small one Blu-ray thin, set that and it's like, okay, or like the Man with No Name trilogy thing is in a small little. Nothing,
yeah, there's different size Blu-ray cases and DVD cases as well that companies utilize to package stuff, and sometimes they're not great. Sometimes they're not sometimes they're not big enough, so the discs are really kind of all crammed in there. Sometimes there are some movie sets where they don't even have they're not Blu-ray cases. They're oh boy, what are we looking here? They're contraptions. They're contraptions. They are. The intention was great, but the execution is just not there. And one of my biggest ones for that is the Alfred Hitchcock set put out by Universal. They put out a couple of sets, but it's the Alfred Hitchcock The Masterpiece Collection, which has 15 movies in it. And the way in which they house the movies, this is notorious by Universal. They love to just do shitty things with their classic movies, is the movies are in it's done in like a giant book where each of them are like cardboard sleeves. There's all kind of artwork. There's the special features lists, all kind of stuff, which is great. I love the effort, but the discs are stored like inside these 2 cardboard pieces together. So you gotta like pry these 2 cardboard pieces out to pry the disc out. And sometimes you can tear the casing. Sometimes the glue on this casing doesn't hold up over time and the set falls apart. Or sometimes I've heard horror stories where the glue will actually get on the disc itself, and you've got to like peel the glue off of the disc, and you could damage the disc. Damage the disc so it won't be playable or things like that. And I've heard horror stories like that when it's like people who bought it the day it came out. Like, it's not like this was sitting around for years. Like, they got it brand new from the manufacturer, and there's all these kinds of problems. I forgot what they call that packaging. It's a book style packaging. That's the way I familiarize it. But it's not digibook. This is like actual, like, it's designed like a book, but the discs are just in a really precarious position. And then was another one a few years ago. This is the biggest horror story I think I've ever seen in my collecting life. When the original Back to the Future Blu-ray set came out, 2009, 2010, I'm not quite sure. I don't even know how to describe this garbage. But there weren't plastic hubs. The discs were just like wedged into into the packaging itself. Like there would be plastic that would come over the disc on the sides to hold it in place. So you had to kind of bend the disc itself to get it out, and then rebend the disc to get it back in, and it would just kind of hover in space, or stay in space. And that's the way they did it. and they immediately discontinued that packaging. And they only did it for like that particular year of editions, because I know they also did it with season 5 Blu-ray of The Office. For those of you at home who have it or know what I'm talking about, take your season 5 Blu-ray of The Office out, and you will see that packaging still intact. They've since discontinued that packaging with the Back to the Future set, and they've come out with a new Back to the Future set, coincidentally in that cardboard digibook style that I was just talking about and ripping on. So they're still sticking with that, but they got rid of that other nonsense. So sometimes you get what you pay for, and sometimes you don't get what you pay for, but you have to be mindful of packaging and specifically how the discs are stored. Discs are still the most important part of any set when you're collecting.
Definitely.
It's still like the reason why you're buying this is for the movie. Some people just buy things for the aesthetic. I understand that.
Sure.
There have been some great looking aesthetic sets out there. I remember, Terminator 2 DVD set that was like a bust of the exoskeleton or something like that. Or there was a bust of Neo for the Matrix set or something like that.
Well, I mean, we can talk about some of our pride and joy purchases real quick. Like for me, the one I always bring up is I have the ultimate collector's edition of the Harry Potter movies, where it comes in this big cabinet and you can open it up and it's all these departments and little hidden things inside the set.
Right.
It's massive. It's in big books, and it has the DVD and Blu-ray and sometimes 3D versions of the movies.
It's like those trunks that the kids bring to Hogwarts, as students with all their stuff in it.
Yeah.
For me, I mean, I guess we can throw we'll not include the Bergman set, because I think that's the the Uber set. Like,
that's a set that is on kind of a different level.
A different level.
Because, I mean...
It's unprecedented,
It's
in
the sense of the film history of what's in that set is crazy. But like, you have your them type of sets, and then you have your, like, intricate sets like my Harry Potter set that are more for super fans, that are more about the gimmick of it. There's a gimmickness to that set.
There is.
That's cool, or like my Nakatomi Plaza set from a Die Hard movies.
Right. I am jealous of that. You also have the isn't it the Blu-ray set for Texas Chainsaw? That's I have
I have the Texas Chainsaw. I think it's 40 year, 45.
Yeah, I think it's 40th anniversary.
Yeah, that's like the truck in the movie. And of course I have my Marvel Cinematic Universe Phase 1 and 2 sets that are very gimmicky.
Yeah, I wonder what that Phase 3 set's gonna be.
I hope it's the Infinity Gauntlet.
It's got to be the Infinity Gauntlet.
It's got to be.
Or maybe it's a bust of Thanos.
And what if they don't even put one out? I'm gonna be like,
oh man, that's another thing about collecting is
sometimes some companies will abandon something.
They'll abandon concepts.
Yeah.
Like, for example, we were just talking about packaging, steelbook packaging or digibook packaging. Yeah. What happens if you're one of these obsessive compulsive, people like me and Steven, and they put out let's say it's a trilogy and they put out a steelbook, and then
suddenly
steelbook.
They don't put a steelbook out for
and
they
don't put a steelbook for the third one, and I'm like, and then you're like, I guess it's gonna look a little awkward on my shelf, I guess.
Yeah.
That happens.
And sometimes, and then going into the last thing, and some of your pride and joys real quick.
Pride and joys. I mean, other than the Bergman set, I have the Zatoichi set from Criterion, which is really nice. It was when Criterion was putting out the dual format sets, so it has both the Blu-ray and the DVD, so it has a lot of discs. That's really kind of cool. It's not a complete Zatoichi set though, because it doesn't include the television series from the 70s, and it doesn't include, I think, the last movie from like 89 or something, or the remake movie that they did in the 2000s. That's a great set. I'm just looking at my sets now. I have the giant Lawrence of Arabia. Yeah, Casablanca set from Warner Brothers, which is one of my first deluxe sets that I ever got, and I just love that movie so much that it's the 70th anniversary limited edition gift set. To be honest, it's numbered, but you can still find it.
And then there's you have the Singing in the Rain set too, right?
I do have the Singing in the Rain set. Warner Brothers puts out a lot of those. One of those Fox. I have the Ten Commandments set. I have the Gone with the Wind. Gone with the Wind.
Do you have the Wizard of Oz?
Blu-ray one. I do have the Wizard of Oz. I have, speaking of something that
they have a couple sets though, right? Yeah.
They had an original one that was just green, and then I know this one is green.
I got
as
the
well,
3D one.
I have the 3D set too.
Yeah.
But I don't even have the 3D setup anymore, and I never watched it in 3D.
Well, I would
so
never
it's like,
watch
what do
it
I do
in 3D.
now?
That's, but I mean.
But I bought it because I wanted the Wizard of Oz, just in general, and it's a big set. It's a
nice set,
box. Yeah. I have the Lawrence of Arabia set, which is something that I is one of my pride and joys because it's the big 50th anniversary limited collector's edition set. It's a big set.
It's a great set. It is one of my horror stories though, because mine was a used version, and so the bottom part of it's in a box packaging.
Yes,
and
it is.
One side of it's like ripped on the box.
No,
is ripped on the. There's like it flaps open.
Oh man, that sucks.
Yeah.
Thing is, what's crazy about those sets is, I don't touch them a lot. I don't, open up the contents a lot. I don't move them around a lot. And even just by not doing that, they still, defects still happen. They start getting warped just by sitting around.
Yeah.
The cardboard starts bowing or bending. You lay it flat. If you stand up one of those sets, the cardboard will start bowing. If you lie them flat, the cardboard does some stuff too. So it's not. There's nothing you can really do
unless you have some real you keep them in like
a box,
like
a plastic case.
Yeah, something where you can't see them or touch them at all.
Yeah, like at a museum. It's but I'm like, I want to watch these movies. I want to. Take the discs out. Sometimes these sets can be a little too elaborate to where you got to check out everything to get to the discs.
Well, that kind of goes into what we were going to talk about, which is double dipping a little bit.
Yes.
Sometimes I double dip on something because I do have it in a big set, and I'll I want to get to this movie easily, so I'm going to go get the single edition of this. Or sometimes when it comes to that getting a franchise in a big pack like we were talking about earlier. Sometimes we double dip because we get the movies in single editions first, and then later, like for instance, John Wick. I got the first 2 John Wick movies in single editions. When that third movie comes out, I might buy it in a trilogy pack.
You know what's crazy? I have the first 2 in Steelbook.
Yeah.
From Best Buy exclusive Steelbook, and I'm like, I hope they put out the third one in Best Buy exclusive Steelbook as well.
It will.
Or else I'm just going to be so mad.
I'm going to kill myself.
But that was another thing where. They put the first one out in regular edition, like regular Blu-ray case, slipcover, nice, whatever. And then when the second one came out on Blu-ray, they re-released the first one in a Steelbook edition. But then I was like, I want the second movie in a Steelbook, because the Steelbook is dope. It was like red and black. It was awesome, awesome cover. But then I'm like, my obsessive compulsiveness kicks in, and I'm like, gotta rebuy the first one now because it's got to match up on the shelf. It's got to match up on the shelf. So
and
there we go. Double dipping. That's
how some double dipping happens.
That's how some double dipping happens.
What is the movie you've double dipped on the most?
Oh man,
mine is The Matrix.
I wish I could get up and go look because
that in the Dark Knight trilogy.
Dark Knight trilogy. I bought them all. Oh man, did I?
I bought all 3 of them 4 times.
Oh shit! Well, Steven, I gotta look. Let's see. I bought Batman Begins.
What about Lord of the Rings?
Oh, I'll get into that in a second. But I bought Batman Begins and Batman and Dark Knight on DVD. Then when Dark Knight Rises came out, I'm pretty sure I bought that. Because by that point it was 2012.
Yeah.
So I bought the Blu-ray. But then I rebought. Like I told you, I rebought Batman Begins. I rebought Dark Knight. I rebought the Dark Knight on Blu-ray, and then of course I bought Dark Knight Rises with the digibook from Target, and then I rebought all 3 of them in Steelbook editions, and then I bought all 3 of them again in 4K editions recently.
Yes.
So I couldn't keep track of these numbers, but let's just say a lot. I rebought them a lot.
For me, I've rebought The Matrix at least 3 times. Or probably 4 times actually, because the DVD. Well, I guess you can consider the VHS. I still have the VHS.
Oh damn!
So then I have the VHS. So 5 times I've redone the first Matrix movie.
Well, here we go. Well, Lord of the Rings. Here we go. Because it's multiple editions and cuts. Here we go. I bought, the 3 theatrical cuts on DVD.
Yeah.
And then I bought the 3 extended editions on DVD. And then I bought the theatrical cuts on Blu-ray. Then I bought the theatrical cuts individually on Steelbook. And then I bought the extended edition, set.
Set, yeah.
And and the temptation to buy them individually has been there.
And then you will get the 4K set.
And then I'll get the 4K set whenever that happens.
Yeah, the only thing you haven't gotten is that ultimate thing with all 6 movies.
That came and went really quick. I don't even know if
and apparently it wasn't worth it. So.
I don't think anybody bought it because it was like hundreds of dollars, I think.
It was way too much.
It was way too much. And The Hobbit's another thing where I bought... I can't get into it.
It's pretty gross.
It's pretty gross.
But it's okay. We have, it's all right. It's
and if you noticed, a lot of the rebuying I did was because of the new formats that came.
New formats and new packaging.
Moving from DVD to Blu-ray and now from Blu-ray to 4K, it's going to be multiple buying because sometimes you bought multiple editions within one format.
Yeah.
Like I've done with Blu-rays, you know what I mean? And a lot of it happened early on. But when I started early on collecting, I didn't know the difference. Like I was so naive and so dumb. I didn't understand what the difference between full screen and widescreen was. So full screen at the time, I only had, 4x3 giant tube TVs. So to me, widescreen, it wasn't even a concept to me. It wasn't until I got, widescreen televisions became a thing that I realized that full screen is garbage. Full screen is garbage.
That's not the full screen. This is bullshit.
Yeah, it's like full screen. You're actually missing parts of the movie. So there were some full screen DVDs I had from my early days that I just threw in the trash. I don't need them anymore.
I think we're gonna have to title this episode like AA for movie collectors or like the Confessions of Crazy Movie Collector.
Confessions of a Collectorholic or something.
Yeah, because we're getting into some deep psychological shit right now. But I think this is where we need to end. We could go probably all night with this stuff.
Oh yeah, most definitely.
But I think we've gotten a little deeper into our collecting habits, what motivates us, how we set up our movies at home, a little bit of everything. I'm sure a lot of you out there that listen can relate. And please, tell us how crazy we are. Tell us about your collections. Tell us your number, how many movies are in your collection. We'd like to know. We'd like to know that stuff. Tell us some of your favorite movies in your collection. We want to know all that stuff. And where can you find us? Where can we find Andrew?
You can find me on Twitter at Kevzilla06, as well as my YouTube channel, Kevzilla Productions.
And you can find me on Facebook at Stephen Billings. You can also find this podcast on YouTube. You can find it on Apple Podcasts, Podbean. You can also follow our Instagram where I, like I said, post all of the things that I buy. And
that's pretty much what I do on Instagram as well. Yeah, I never take selfies.
No, not often. No, he also puts out a lot of his things he buys, not only movies but books and comic books and things like that. So
that's a whole other collecting game.
Yeah, definitely. But that will be it for our episode of the Cinema Discovery Project. Thank you for listening, and hey, keep on watching them movies.
I know I will.